Hello and welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Anderson, here today with special guest from The Ringer, brought back to the old stomping grounds, Anthony Dabbundo, here to talk some NFL with me. It's June. It's almost July. Football is around the corner. The summer of sports is here. The NBA wrapped up last night as we speak. We got all sorts of sports happening. Dabbundo, you watch and cover like every sport in the world. What are you watching and not watching this summer?
Yeah, it's funny because people talk about the NBA Finals as like the end of the kind of sporting calendar. But hey, man, my Philadelphia Phillies are in first place. We've got Wimbledon starting next Monday. The Club World Cup, which I'm struggling to really get into, but I think I'm going to get there now that the knockout stage is coming around as this kind of made up new event that they just started at FIFA. So there's always things to be watching, to be talking about, big time storylines for the summer. Open Championship, of course, coming up if you're a golf fan, which I'm not. But, we're officially in that season now, right? If you're one of those people that loves the NBA, loves the NFL, well, now it's time to start talking because the NFL will be here sooner rather than later.
It will be. So that's what we're doing. We're calling this the playoff picture look ahead. So as we start to hit July, we're starting to get the gears moving, right? The NFL draft, it was so long ago. I remember who went on all the teams and where all the players are at. We kind of like dug back in like, all right, let's get things moving. So what we want to do today is, since the playoff format switched to 14 teams about half a decade ago, on average, out of those 14, we typically see about 8 of the 14 make the playoffs again, but that means 6 fall out, almost half of them. So we're going to try to go through. We'll do AFC today, NFC later this week. We're going to say, okay, who stays, who goes, and then who replaces the departed. So, yeah, we're going to go through AFC teams today. We're going to sort of draft in order who we are most confident in to make the playoffs, to stay in the playoffs. And then we'll go through all 7 from last year, in or out. And we need 6. Each of us will pick 6 teams to miss. Doesn't have to be 3 AFC, 3 NFC. We haven't figured out our teams beforehand, so we'll see how that goes. And then at the end, we'll give you our early leans on who is taking those now vacant spots. This is early. It's June. There are no islands here yet. We're not like unloading the futures portfolio here yet. We're tiptoeing in. We're getting some early feelers out there. Be sure to listen to the NFC version when we get to that later in the week. AFC, all the star quarterbacks. We'll be honest, not a lot of intrigue at the top here as far as teams that we're pretty sure will make the playoffs. Dabbundo, you're up first. Who's a team that made last year's playoffs that you think will be there again?
I think the first pick in any draft would default to Kansas City, but I actually don't think they're the most likely to return. And of course, I still think that the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes' track record speaks for itself. But with the first pick, I'm going to take Buffalo, mainly because the schedule is just hilarious. I mean, they basically don't have much to be worried about here in this schedule. They have, a Super Saiyan quarterback who has no real notable injury history, and their schedule is really, really easy, especially the home schedule. They get Kansas City and Philly at home. So that's probably their 2 quote unquote toughest games on the calendar. They get Baltimore at home as well. So everybody's got to go to Orchard Park. And when Buffalo's been as good as they've been at home, I just don't really see a ton of flaws here. They rebuilt the defense. Like last year was supposed to be the step back season for them, where they're like, oh, this defense isn't really great. And it turned out the defense really wasn't great. And now I think they'll just be better. And I think McDermott's ability to coach up defenses makes a huge difference. They've proven they didn't need Stephon Diggs. They can be a great offense by kind of having the sum be more than the whole, or the whole be more than the sum of the parts. And I don't really see anything standing in Buffalo's way in this division either. Everybody thinks New England will be better, fair, but Miami's going the wrong way. The Jets are starting Justin Fields. I think Buffalo is the safest bet in the entire league, really, to make the playoffs this year.
So I agree with you. I got Buffalo win. We're parsing between like a few 100% effectively is at the top here. I'm surprised Buffalo top pick. I actually came into this exercise thinking maybe Buffalo will be my big sleeper out team. Yet no, because Josh Allen, end of story. Josh Allen means playoffs. And sure, Josh Allen could get hurt. That could be true of any of the other guys too. We can't project that necessarily. I'm a little skeptical just on, I do think this is a regression team. The question is just how much. The defense has lost a lot of names over the years, and maybe it just was time for those veterans to go. The big move is Joey Bosa. That's not really moving the needle for me. The offensive line was super healthy last year. That's great, but doesn't always necessarily mean that's going to continue the next year. They didn't really have a big draft impact. It's really just Josh Allen, which means playoffs because it's Josh Allen. 10 wins in 6 straight years, 10 or more wins, obviously. Passed the wild card round the last 5 years in a row. Top 5 point differential the last 5 years in a row. I think the division will be better than it was last year. I think the Bills will be worse than they were last year. I think the Bills will make the playoffs. So Josh Allen, Bills into the playoffs. I'll come back at you with another shocker here. I'm going to pick the Chiefs to make the playoffs, Dabbundo. The Kansas City Chiefs. Can you believe it?
Riveting start. One more thing on Buffalo. They kept Joe Brady. I think that was a huge thing. Because really, like, you can draw a through line to when they became more of a run-heavy, lean-on teams offense that didn't rely on Josh to just kind of lean into the worst of Josh's instincts of just throwing the ball over the yard. And that's really when we saw Josh take a step up in his efficiency and a step down in turnovers, which was a huge thing that hurt them the year prior.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll hope they keep Joe Brady all season. McDermott has had this sort of pattern of like, well, we had our dip in the season, better fire another assistant again. So I agree. I like Joe Brady a lot. Hopefully they actually keep him around. Chiefs, I mean, look, if you're listening to this podcast, that you know the Chiefs are making the playoffs unless Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. Even if they don't get hurt, as much as we should look at 15-2 last year with how many was it, like 9 or 10 one-score wins, all the profile, if you erased Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, all the stuff fits the profile of like, oh, overperformer, going to drop off the next year. Like, all the things are there. But last year was the rebuilding year. Like, they get back now Rashee Rice, who I think is a huge impact receiver. They get year 2 Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju is back. I think that we could set up maybe for more of a Mahomes MVP push this year with the receivers there. Josh Simmons in the first round at left tackle, or Jalen Moore, who they signed in free agency. I don't know, man. Can we just get a real left tackle to protect Patrick Mahomes? Is it just like the deal with the devil that we just can't give them a real left tackle? But the floor of the interior offensive line, the coaching staff, and then just Pat Mahomes, 89-23 career, 13.5 win pace, 7 seasons, 7 conference championships. I know about the obvious downfalls of what like the profile looks like. If you have never missed the conference championship, I'm not picking you to miss the playoffs. If it happens, so it goes. Anything else to say about the Chiefs here?
I think the division's overrated. I think you're going to get a lot of buzz about the Chargers and about the Broncos. Like, can they challenge the Chiefs for the division? I really don't think so. Both of those teams really benefited. Like, one thing we don't talk about enough is like just how top heavy the AFC has been the last few years. And what that has meant is that like the difference between a first place schedule that Kansas City plays and like the second and third and fourth place schedules that the Chargers and Denver got to play last year just meant that the schedule differences were massive. And the Chargers and Denver got to the playoffs, lost in round 1 on the road, but got to the playoffs, which was a step forward for both franchises. But they didn't beat anybody really competent in the whole season, except for the Chargers beating Denver. So I still think they're a clear step behind. Like, do I think the Chargers could pick off a game from the Chiefs? Sure. But I really think that the Chiefs are still head and shoulders above. And, maybe they'll have a slow start and we get to do like our patented bet the Chiefs to win the AFC West at better odds week 4 than we got preseason again. Cause that's been a tried and true method. Not last year, but 2 years prior, 3 years prior.
Yeah, I agree. Not much more to say there. So we have the top, I think the consensus top 3 quarterbacks in the league are in the AFC. We've taken 2 of them. Are you taking the third one as our other lock 100% playoff team in the AFC?
I probably would have taken Baltimore before I took Kansas City. No, I wouldn't have. That's a lie. But yeah, I think if you just took a full depth chart of the entire NFL, I actually think you could make a case that Baltimore's the most complete roster.
Yeah.
And what we saw from the Ravens post defensive shuffle last season was all around some of the best football. Now, there is some noise in the data, and I know that a lot of people will come on and talk about how great their defense was post Hamilton change versus pre. The schedule also got a lot easier. They got to play the Browns, the corpse of the Steelers toward the end of last season, but it was also an entirely new staff. It wasn't just they lost Mike McDonald. It was that they had to replace Mike McDonald and everybody under Mike McDonald that left in that group. So I think there was a natural kind of down period that had certainly happened for the Ravens. But this year, they look like a really complete roster. And so as Lamar is healthy, and I guess inherently he's the biggest injury risk of the three with Josh and Pat, I just don't really think it's all that interesting to pick against any of those three teams. And it's tough because we can go back to last season. The Final Four in the AFC was the same 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
It was Buffalo. They switched the matchups, but it was Buffalo, Kansas City, Houston, and Baltimore. And 5 of the 7 teams in the AFC that were in the playoffs 2 years ago were in the playoffs again last year. And you can make a convincing case. Like, this is a much harder exercise in the AFC, trying to figure out who's not going to make it.
Yeah, I agree. The only reason for me that Baltimore is third of these three, and we'll move on past this after this, but I agree. Baltimore has clearly to me the best roster of the three. It to me just comes down to, at the end of the day, rosters or not, we're not going to pick Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson to miss the playoffs, unless, of course, one of them misses a month with injury. And of those three, history tells us, play style tells us, Lamar is the biggest injury threat. That's just reality of what we're seeing. So to me, the best roster goes to third just because Lamar can take an injury. Do you know who Lamar Jackson's backup is right now going into the season?
I know our old friend Snoop isn't there anymore, so
no longer Mr. Pro Bowl himself, Snoop Huntley. It's Cooper Rush. That does not inspire me.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah,
look, he was competent
he was competent, but it's a very I don't know. It's a different play style, obviously, as anyone would be from Lamar Jackson. The special teams has long been a high floor Baltimore thing. They were bottom 10 DVOA last year. Justin Tucker finally is gone. That's obviously a whole thing. It's an olderish roster, somewhat on the defense. Special teams floor is a little lower. There is a little bit shakier foundation in some ways. But Zach Orr, defensively, year 2, I'm excited to see what that means for them. Obviously, I believe in the coaching staff, and just the Ravens over the years have been so steady. So those are the three. I guess 2 of the 3 teams you mentioned with the Chiefs, their division not necessarily being as big of a threat. We'll see who we get to as far as teams making the playoffs from not making it last year. But I think the Ravens potentially have the biggest threats in the division, at least to take a couple of games off of them and make it a little bit harder into the mix of things. So I think just for me, nitpicking between those 3, the Lamar injury factor, the Baltimore division is why I would have them third of the group. Anything else to add on the Ravens?
Well, you mentioned the division. They do get Cleveland early, which I actually think is you'd prefer to play Cleveland late.
Yeah.
So, because if this blows up, like, it's more likely to blow up, and then you're playing against like rookie Shadur or Dylan Gabriel tanking. Yeah, who knows by the end of the season. I know that you've already bet the Steelers in Week 14 in Baltimore. They're going to be plus 7.5. You'll be on them in that game. Yeah. So that they'll split. Like, they're just more likely to drop division games just because of the way that division plays historically. And also, like, very clearly the closest challenger to this kind of top 3-4 is the team whose t-shirt you're wearing right now, which is the Bengals. So, yeah. And like, they're in that division. So the fourth Super Saiyan quarterback, who I think is the clear fourth, but we could debate that at another time, is there. So this is where it gets more fun. I'm going to draft the Texans fourth.
Okay.
Because I really can't get there on any of the other AFC South teams. I want to. Like if Richardson were healthy with Anarumo coming in to replace the corpse of Gus Bradley, my Colts would be a really interesting team because when Richardson played last year, for all the jokes about completion percentage, they were not a bad offense. But he's already got this shoulder issue, and I don't think he can hold up for a full season as currently constructed. And Jacksonville is really interesting, and I suspect we'll have a lot of buzz because of Travis Hunter, because of Liam Cohen. And I understand all that. But their defense was the worst in the NFL at tackling last year, like worse than the Panthers. And the personnel is still pretty shaky to me on that front. I think they could be a special offense, but we've been saying that about Trevor Lawrence teams for how long now? And so I just went around the thing and I settled on, I am very confident that Houston is a top 5 defense in the NFL. And I know defense is hard to predict, but I'm like personnel, scheme, coaching, I'm very confident in what that defense can be. And, you know, I'm still kind of on the fence about Stroud and like where he sits on like the list of quarterbacks. If you were to rank them out 1 to 32, I think we've seen highs. We've seen some really inconsistent play. We've seen some sack issues that have developed. But the reality is that when Nico Collins is on the field, they're a pretty productive duo. And if they're able to fix the O-line, they move on from Slowick, then there is a ceiling there. But again, just the floor of Stroud, which I think we kind of saw the worst of Stroud last year, plus this defense is high enough that I just trust them to win this division.
So I was really close on the Texans. I have the Texans out, mostly because we got to pick 6 teams to miss, and we needed to pick 6 teams to come in. And in the AFC, it's hard to find both of those, actually, to say, okay, who can come in that wasn't there last year? I don't really see a lot of change in this conference. And quite frankly, this division, where I don't really feel like the Texans were even good last year, they just played in a division where everyone else was terrible. They had a +0 point differential, -0 as far as I'm concerned. I know they crushed the Chargers in the playoffs, but all year long, we were looking for spots to fade the Texans. There just weren't spots to fade the Texans because the division was terrible. So I kind of did the same process you did. Okay, I'm ready to fade the Texans. Great. What do we got? All right, Cam Ward and the Titans. Nope, don't want that. Wait, how about Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco and wait, is that? No, not Joe Flacco. He's on a different team now. Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones and draft Daniel Jones. That's right. Pass. Don't need that. Okay, well, spoiler alert to where my pick will come from. I guess Jacksonville. We'll come back to that. I agree. Houston's defense gives them a pretty high floor. I really like the CJ Gardner-Johnson pickup for them, just as a safety, kind of a weapon at the back of DeMeco Ryan's defense. You get DeMeco, you get Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter up front. Just lots to like there. And frankly, it's hard to think their offense can really be much worse than last year.
Exactly.
I don't really know. Nick Caley is the new coordinator. I haven't done my coaching deep dive yet. The one thing that could make it worse, Laramie Tunsil is gone. And
he wasn't good last year.
He wasn't
That's
good.
The thing.
He wasn't.
He
but the
looked
offensive line
like he
looked
turned
pretty
to
bad.
dust.
Is it like a bottom 10, bottom 5-ish offensive line potentially? And we saw Nico get hurt. Nico's awesome. I don't know about the other receivers. Christian Kirk, I can kind of get on board with that if Nico is healthy. Jaden Higgins, round 2. Tank Dell, I assume we're going to get not much of, if anything, this season. Nick Chubb, I don't know. Like, that's where we're kind of drafting fantasy running backs with Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. I don't really see a lot of explosion. If the line is not great and Stroud is closer to year 2 Stroud than year 1 Stroud, again, I think this is about what they were last year. I think they'll be a better version of a 500-ish club, and I just need somebody in the division to step up. I don't feel strongly pushing them out. I just needed somebody, so I'm pushing Houston out. I have one other AFC playoff team in. I'm going to keep the Chargers. I feel like I'm going to buy the Jim Harbaugh floor, effectively. He's had 11 wins or more in 4 of his 5 NFL seasons. Even the bad season was a 500 season. We keep talking about the quarterbacks. I'll take Justin Herbert. Like, I'm happy to have Herbert. I don't know if he's quite in that top 3, top 4, Joe Burrow, whatever the range is, but he's certainly next among the list and could break into that group still. They start 3-3 last year. They finish 11-6 from there. They were basically in every game except for one. Again, I don't love Greg Roman, but we kind of know that the high floor is there. We did see the offense become more passing, more Justin Herbert vehicle as the season went on. I like that. I like adding Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris. Not that excited about him, but I feel like we knew they want to run the ball. Now they got some running backs they actually want. They bring in Mekhi Becton. All right, probably not going to be as good as he was with the Eagles, but you added something onto the line. I thought Ladd McConkey was really good last year. I'm not excited about the Chargers. I just feel like in the AFC, once we got past those 3-4 definite teams, we need 3 wild cards in the AFC. And right now, I had a really hard time coming up with a wild card. So I don't necessarily say, oh yeah, the Chargers are ready to take down the Chiefs. But to me, among wild card options, they were a relatively easy choice for me.
Yeah, I agree with the floor. I mean, I think that Harbaugh gives them a baseline level of competency and we'll say toughness in quotation marks, because I think that stuff can be kind of hard to quantify or hard to really understand. People only talk about it usually after the fact, right? But Harbaugh has enough of a track record that you would trust him. But they didn't really do much to in the offseason. That's the scary thing. It's we all knew what the obvious flaw was, and they didn't really address the flaw to the extent that they should have. It's just can you get more than one player that can catch passes so that Ladd McConkey doesn't have to have 14 receptions in a playoff game that you lose by double digits? So that when teams just blitz and play man behind it, you can't beat that in any way, shape, or form, which is basically what Houston did. I mean, I think a lot about this Chargers team and how they're kind of missing a window here, and I'm not really sure why they're not building. Maybe that's just a Harbaugh team building philosophy. They want to keep building through the line, sure. New running back comes in, okay, that might add some explosiveness because they were certainly lacking that toward the end of last season. But it's is a first round, a big running back addition going to change what you think of the Chargers going forward? I'm kind of dubious about this whole situation with them, but I think I kept them in too.
Okay.
And since we had to do 6, my NFC is going to look a little bit different. It's so funny because my Zag team that I had planned, and I'm thinking about maybe going against the grain and is just buying Pittsburgh again. Because I looked in their plus 150 to make the playoffs. And I'm I mean, how many years in a row are we going to do this thing with Tomlin? And very obviously, even washed Rodgers is better quarterback play than they got most of this decade when they also made the playoffs. And we know that Watt is nearing the declining phase of his career, but he was also injured last season in the second half, which definitely contributed to him not being as good. So I really wanted to put Pittsburgh in here because I kind of think that's the Zag.
Yeah.
But for this exercise, they were in the playoffs the last 2 years, so I can't use them as one of my change teams. And so this is where I really struggled to come up with who my next team is. So I will take everybody's favorite, Cincinnati Bengals. I think that this defensive personnel, there's an inherent kind of survivorship bias to the Bengals defense, where eventually you have all these bad players and you suck for a really long time. But eventually you find just enough good players, you keep them around, and then defenses naturally regress to the mean because you just find enough okay to good players, you get a decent scheme in there, and all of a sudden a really bad defense just becomes a generally bad defense. But I don't know, man. The personnel looks just as bad right now. I mean, we all liked Lanarumo. He leaves. Golden comes in. I like Golden as a defensive coordinator. But at a certain point, it's not always about the X's and the O's if you don't have the Jimmies and the Joes. So the Bengals defense looks still really bad on paper. But what we know and what remains true is that the most predictive thing about NFL football in 2025 and 2022 and 2021, basically the last 15 years, how good is your offense? We know that the Bengals offense with those 3 guys will be one of the 10 best in the league. And so I have to pick them here. There's no other option. and they missed last year, so it's a free change. It's like
Yeah.
it's like free parking in Monopoly.
Yeah, I don't even really have a lot to add to that with the Bengals. I agree with all that, including like, all right, well, we needed to mix something up in the AFC. Let's pick the freebie outcome there. 9 wins or more in 4 straight seasons. They finished the year on a 5-game winning streak, missed the playoffs. The proverbial team nobody wants to play. Well, guess what? Nobody had to play them because I guess the thing to say here maybe is I don't think I want to be betting on Bengals futures right now. How about just wait after the first month? Because they don't show up in September any year. They started 0-3 last year. They're coming out of the gates cold year after year. I don't know if that's a Joe Burrow thing or if that's a team mentality thing or whatever it is. Like, this is a team routinely now to let them do their thing, like play around in their preseason season games and then invest later and buy the playoff bump after that. The offense last year when T and Chase were on the field was awesome, was like unstoppable with both those guys out there. I'm not even really the biggest T Higgins fan, but it's undeniable. The numbers when he and Chase were out there, like Chase was unbelievable in those games, had just some like ungodly lines. T had monster numbers. I don't think most of us thought we were going to see that again. We were expecting, a lot of us, that T Higgins would be gone from this team. And they were like, well, what if not? What if we just run it back again? So I share the same concerns. I don't really know if I love the defense on this team. I hope the young corner...
Can't be worse.
Exactly. It really can't be much worse. I like Donnarumma, but maybe you just need a new voice. The corners are young. Maybe they get a little better. Trey Hendrickson, I thought, was like a DPOI candidate, so he can be worse. So that's a little scary when your one good player can really only get worse. But yeah, I think we know defense wins championships is maybe a thing like in the actual Super Bowl game. Offense makes playoffs. Star quarterbacks make playoffs. So yeah, to me, Bengals, Chargers, it's kind of a similar floor situation for making the playoffs. Go yard all baseball season long with Underdog's Pick'em game. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be the next one? To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower in one of the stats. You can choose from things like home runs, strikeouts, total bases, and so much more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1. If you get everything right, you could win up to 1,000 times your money. NBA season just wrapping up over here. We've been hitting highs and lowers all NBA playoff long. We'll be heading that direction with football and whatever else we got this summer as well. So download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code Action Network to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Action Network. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-New York or text HOPE-NY. So you're at 6 playoff teams now. So both of us have Chiefs, Bills, Ravens in. That's an easy trio. We both have Chargers in, so that's 4. I've got Bengals in as well, so that's 5 we're agreeing on. You have Texans in, so let me come back to my team I'm replacing the Texans with, which we kind of know by now, and then we've got one last one. I'll comment too on the Steelers, because you kind of talked about Steelers, and I'll do Jaguars together here. So Jacksonville, for me, is my Houston replacement with not a heavy amount of confidence here, but I needed somebody to replace the Texans. And yeah, it's all the stuff that you said about where's the hype train going to come from. It's the stuff I like. It's Liam Cohen. I'm excited about that. Grant Udinsky and Anthony Campanile, I guess. Is that how we say it? I haven't learned that name yet. Where's he from? Do you know his name?
Campanile?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, a fellow Paisan. which is a big part of this. But his, I think his brother is on the Syracuse staff as well.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But I mean, it can't get worse. Is kind of where I'm at on the
Right.
defensive situation, because like last year, I was a bit of a Jags hyper. I picked them to win the division because, again, I think we all looked at going into last season. We were like, I mean, the same discussion we had about Houston going into last year was like, okay, they stuck around with this coaching staff, the Slowick situation. We knew that wasn't good. We could all look at their early down numbers, how unsustainable all of it was. And we were like, okay, maybe it'll be better. But then the coordinator hires, like Nielsen, was so bad defensively. Like I remember watching the Buffalo game, the Monday night of like week 3, and I bet the Jags. And I was like, are they going to do anything different here? Can they tackle? Can they stop playing man? Can they stop getting crushed on everything? Like I think the Bills scored a touchdown on their first 5 possessions, and it was like 35-3. He was under Jeff Hafley in Green Bay. They made real improvements last year. They, were a team.
Yeah.
This is I think the thing that I struggle with the most when it comes to handicapping the NFL is like trying to understand who all of these coaches are and if any of them are good or not. It's really hard to do because you're always the product of like the talent around you and the system, and you're trying to figure out who's good and who's not. And even the people who are quote unquote insiders who are plugged in with the league, they don't even know half the time because they're just talking, and a lot of that comes down like, oh, I really like that guy. Maybe if you like him personally, but is he good at his job? So there's all kinds of hard things to do and trying to predict this dumb league we bet on. But nothing I think is harder than trying to figure out if these first time coordinators are going to be any good or not.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at Jacksonville versus Houston, it's a lot of not really mirror image, but there are a lot of similarities. I don't love the offensive line in Jacksonville, certainly. Definitely has not been good, and they haven't really done a lot to improve it. So that's similar to Houston. I think it's interesting looking at, obviously, we know a little bit more about CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. Would you rather have Stroud Collins on your team or Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas for this just next season?
You also get Travis Hunter, though.
I know, but I'm just giving you the two.
I would take 100% Collins.
Okay, because Collins is the better star receiver for sure, but Brian Thomas is coming, and like you said, you get Travis Hunter, and I guess I kind of hate this, but I guess I'm kind of buying into the Travis Hunter X factor of it all, of like, well, maybe he can be the second receiver that kind of comes around, or maybe he's the guy I do, I'd love to see a little more corner from him, to be honest, but I think that'd make me a little more excited about the defense. Comparing Houston and Jacksonville is tough because, okay, the quarterback receiver combo, until you're adding down the list, probably slight favor to Houston. The offensive lines are both bad, but probably slight favor to Houston. And the defense is a huge gap and a clear Houston choice. So how do you pick Jacksonville? Well, I just think the gap is probably smaller than what is implied by some of the numbers in the books right now. And I don't even get a Jacksonville last place schedule because they finished third because the Titans were terrible. So I didn't get help with the last place on the schedule. That didn't help either. I at least get help from Houston has the first place schedule, which in the AFC means you got games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, obviously. So I'll take that. Houston did not play well in its top opponent games last year. But yeah, to me, this is like I don't know. I was going to say 50-40, not even that in this division because it's lower confidence, like a 40-30 situation. And I would put Houston the higher number probably, but for this exercise, I'll go with Jacksonville. You talked about Pittsburgh. I also have the Steelers missing the playoffs. So that's our first agreed team that was in last year, out this year. I just feel like it's hard to imagine how Aaron Rodgers is going to fit a Steelers team culture. Like you and I have watched, we know exactly what the Steelers are our entire life, and they are the opposite of all things Aaron Rodgers. Particularly, I don't like the fit with Arthur Smith at all. Like I don't understand how that's going to work. I feel like, can I take the over under like week 6.5 when Arthur Smith is gone from the team? I don't see that lasting at all. He doesn't fit his style at all. TJ Watt and Cam Hayward are awesome, but can't do the thing forever. Aaron Rodgers is ancient and only 14-21 the last 3 years. I just think what more fitting way for Aaron Rodgers to cap his career than to finally be the guy to end the Mike Tomlin 500 streak. We didn't know how it could happen. How could another team finally take them down? Has to be from the inside. It has to be Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. I agree with you on the Zag thing. If they'd missed last year, to be like, yeah, the defense will be pretty good. The floor is there. The AFC has some spots open. But for this exercise, as a team that was in the playoffs, I think they're a relatively easy pick to miss. The only team left that made last year's playoffs that we haven't talked about yet is the Denver Broncos. Do you have the Broncos in or out?
Out. I suspect they will make me poor. They're at risk of impoverishing me this season because I could not be lower on this team.
Me too.
I get it. Like, their defense was really good last year. Bo Nix did the job, capital T, capital J, but like the job was not particularly inspiring in terms of his long-term prospects to me. I don't understand why everybody loves Denver so much as like the leap team.
Either.
I think like if you had sold me on Denver being the leap team, it was that they went out and got some like top end receiver to turn this offense into more of a multi-dimensional unit. They didn't really do that. They're kind of just rolling with what they have here. And the case is that the defense is going to dramatically overperform our expectations again. They were not seen as an above average defense going into last season. And how many times have we seen this before where a team comes out of nowhere to be a great defense? They force all these turnovers. They do all this crazy shit. We're like, wow, look at the Broncos. Okay, let's also look at the Broncos. They got their brains beat in the playoffs by Buffalo. They got demolished by Baltimore. They lost both of their games to the Chargers. Yes, there was some hilarious things that happened at the end of the game, but they lost to the Bengals in a spot where they needed a win to clinch. When everybody beat the Bengals in a close game last year, the one team that couldn't do it was Denver. And so, I look at this Denver team, and I'm just going to list all the teams they beat last year. Kansas City when everybody rested. Indianapolis in that hilarious Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball game. Cleveland in the Jameis pick six extravaganza. Vegas, they beat Atlanta in what I think was Kirk Cousins' either last or second to last start. They beat Carolina by 2 touchdowns. They beat New Orleans and the Rattler in that all-time classic on Thursday Night Football. They beat Vegas in Week 5. They beat the Jets 10-9, and they had an impressive win against Tampa. Those were their wins last year. Yes, the schedule is not even that bad this year, but it is better. They will have more tough games. They play the NFC East, which I think Dallas will be an improved team. The Eagles are still the Eagles. Washington, if Daniels is healthy, will be in the mix. So it's a tougher cross, right? You don't get to play the NFC South this year, which is honestly like a huge difference.
It's true.
And if you're looking at futures and you're looking at like this AFC, who gets to play the NFC South is like a big difference compared to the other 3 divisions in the NFC. And Denver does not get that luxury. None of the AFC West gets that luxury, which I think inflated all of their records last year. And so I have Denver out.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you here. I thought they had an absolutely fraudulent profile last year. I'm so grateful that Denver got blown out in their one playoff game because I was just like loading up on when do I get to fade Denver the heck out of the playoffs. And I was so afraid we're going to get one more fraudulent performance and like some stupid, goofy backdoor cover or something. Thankfully, they were who I thought they were.
The opening possession when they hit a 60-yard touchdown, I was like, "What is going on?"
I know. I was like, "Of course, this is what's happening."
They owned me all year too. I mean, I was at a wedding during the Raiders game that they won when the Raiders had 1st and goal at the 1 to cover and didn't score. I had I had the Browns in the Jameis game, and then I had the Colts in the Taylor game, and I like collapsed to my knees in the living room. Or at a football game, watching that. There's the amount of ways that they were just winning these games last year was so preposterous.
It was.
I will be the first man at the door to be skeptical of Denver this year.
Yeah, if in our drafting order, if we were just drafting highest confidence either direction, the Broncos honestly might have been my first pick. Like if we could draft in or out, I might have been almost as confident. No, that's probably not true. The quarterbacks are too
Cleveland
good to be
is
in.
still in the AFC. Yeah.
No, I mean of the 7 returning teams from the playoffs is what I'm saying. But even still, then not true because we got to just bank on the star quarterbacks making it. But I just this was a very easy pick. To the coaching thing, I understand. Like we talked about coaching and floor. I'm not there on this group. Like Sean Payton is just a tier below some of the other names we've talked about. I do not have any faith in Joe Lombardi or especially Vance Josephs. His defense has been very up and down. Like they're super aggressive, and when it works, it looks great. And then when it doesn't work, it can get really ugly, as we saw in Arizona. I'm not a Bo Nix believer at all. I have not seen enough. When I do my quarterback rankings, can't imagine he'll be anything other than like the 20 to 25, like the old Ryan Tannehill range before Ryan Tannehill actually became like a quality quarterback late in the career. Just like, okay, you can hand the ball off and like hit the occasional 60-yard post if it's wide open. I don't trust the floor here, and I see zero ceiling. Like the ceiling was last year. They had a top 5 defense and a top 5 special teams by DVOA. That is a giant red flag to me. Those units tend to regress to the mean just by definition over time. So if you take the defense special teams away a little bit, even just a touch, then the offense is going to be a lot worse because they're really only just kind of benefiting from the field position, from the turnovers, all that stuff from there. So between Chargers, Chiefs in the division, even the Raiders should probably be at least a little better than last year, certainly not worse than last year. Yeah, Broncos out for me. So we're almost there to reset the AFC playoff picture. Some real shocking decisions here. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, all in for both of us. Chargers, the wildcard team, stay in. Steelers and Broncos are gone. We agreed on all of that. The only disagreement so far was you kept the Texans in. I took them out and replaced them with the Jaguars. We both put the Bengals in as a new playoff team. I had Jacksonville in as a new team. We both have one slot left. We got all the division winners ostensibly, or at least we have a division pick in each one. We each have one more wild card. Who's your last team in the AFC right now?
So I pulled up the betting odds for playoffs just now. The New England Patriots are plus 152. Now, if we just throw out the betting odds, I would probably take New England. But there is a team in the 3-1 range that has caught my eye. And they are the autumnal wind themselves, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay.
And I am very tempted to pick them. I know I said that the division was overrated, and I think that's still true, to be honest, mainly because of the second and the third team, and obviously the Chiefs have a ton of regression indicators. But the main reason for the New England Patriots is the schedule. I mean, this is a farce. I mean, if you haven't looked yet, just kind of read down the list of teams they play. It's one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. They get to play the NFC South. They get, of course, the last place, which means they get the game against Cleveland. They also get the Raiders in week 1, which could be a pretty important one coming up here. But I just don't think New England has any offensive talent at all. And when you compare that to what the Raiders have, at least in Bowers, I'm looking at a team that has like a proven quarterback playing in a dome. We know, and I know this is we're a Geno podcast. They add Genty to the mix, who could be a really fun, like immediate plug and play guy. Jacoby Myers is like, I might be better than everybody on the Patriots offense at this point. And so, you look at Bowers, Genty, Myers, and Geno in a dome. Do I have questions about the O-line? Yes, but we've also seen Geno operate without a good O-line for years. The defense, do I have questions about the talent, especially on the back end? Yes, but I actually think like they've done a decent job of playing above their talent level on defense the last few years. And so I really want to pick the Raiders.
Yeah,
so the Raiders.
I did not have the Raiders like in my consideration here. So let me make the case for the Patriots because they're my pick, and I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna let you.
It totally
choose.
makes sense. I just knew you were gonna pick the Patriots.
If you want to be on record with the Raiders here, if I can win you. So here's the case for the Patriots. I think the Patriots could be this year's Commanders. And not because of the crazy fourth down conversion and all that, not because Jane Daniel necessarily. Washington last year went into the offseason with this giant sum of money. And then we kind of came away being like, oh, you just like signed like 20 veteran dudes that were just like, all right, money for you, money for you. You can play offensive line, you can be on the defense. And it turned out that just raised the floor from an awful roster to like, okay, a competent roster. We can hang in games now and actually give you a floor. Offensive line. Will Campbell was the top offensive lineman in the draft. They add him. They bring in Morgan Moses, just a standard right tackle. Garrett Bradbury at center. Just a competent offensive line, particularly the two bookends and the guy snapping the ball to the center. If I've got, or snapping the ball to my young quarterback, if I got my year two quarterback, I want a line that's going to give him a chance. They have a chance now. They were terrible last year. I agree. I don't love the weapons offensively. Trevion Henderson in the draft. Okay, maybe I'm sort of intrigued by Kyle Williams at receiver from the draft. I think more than ancient Stephon Diggs at this point. I don't love it. Can Drake May be Jaden Daniels? No, because Jaden Daniels should have been a top 5 MVP candidate last year. Like, he was so good. I really like Drake May. I think he could be in the right year with Josh McDaniels, who I don't love, but certainly has had success with the right mix of guys. Get Drake on the move a little bit, get him sort of doing his thing with a better team overall. And I think still, too, this was a defense that finished 30th in DVOA last year, but coming in, they were in everyone's like top 5 or 10 coming into the season, even like number 1 or 2. There's so much talent here. And now they added Milton Williams, who we saw a great star run with the Eagles. Carlton Davis, I think, is a fantastic corner. And he's the second corner with Christian Gonzalez back healthy. That is a nasty cornerback pair if those guys stay healthy. They added some linebackers. There's already a lot of talent on the roster. I was skeptical last year. I was not a guy that had the Patriots top 10 defensively. I was like, you know what? Losing Bill Belichick, the greatest defensive mind ever in football, probably is going to make your defense worse. And it's probably going to make some of these like weird weapons that don't fit anywhere else. But New England weaponized them. Okay, great. Well, now they don't have that anymore. But they do still have all the talent that's there. And they added a bunch of talent and floor raising. To me, this is in the right mix. Maybe a defense under Mike Vrabel. We know, again, Vrabel is floor to me. I don't know if I love the ceiling. I don't know if I love the long-term direction that they'll go there. But just the team culture, the mentality, the defense, like all that stuff to raise them to me, I call them last year's Commanders because of the way they added the guys everywhere. And then maybe Drake May is the quarterback. Well, I don't know. Could they be last year's Broncos also?
I was about to say that.
Schedule,
I was waiting for you. I was waiting to interject there to say that they have Broncos vibes.
They
like
do
the
have some
defense
Broncos
might be good out of
vibe.
nowhere. Coaching is improved.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're like sneaking in the playoffs at 9-8 when they beat like one good team all year.
Yeah, and that softened.
That's why the odds are what they are. Right. Yeah.
I was shocked to see the odds as low as they were because you know me, love my worst to first division winners, and I was like, okay, remember I came in wanting to fade Buffalo. That was my whole thought coming to the exercise. And I was like, all right, the Patriots, they're right there. Is that the one? I don't know if I'm there yet. They're a wild card pick for me here. You know, like last year's Broncos never, ever, ever threatened the division at all. They just beat a bunch of terrible teams and made the playoffs. I'm going to pick the Patriots to make the playoffs. I don't know if I need to bet it at plus 150. Like that is, I'm not getting any juice for my money. Certainly not in June. But I they're on my radar for worst to first. I'm picking them at least to make here. I'm giving you one more shot. You haven't locked in your final pick here. Have I won you over in the Patriots, or are you sticking with the Raiders?
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. I will stick with my Raiders. I just trust the offense more.
That's fair enough.
I think they have a generational offensive player. They have a quarterback who has proven he can operate in really favorable conditions. He's had great indoor numbers all of his career. Now he gets even better numbers there. And so much of the Geno issues were in the red zone last year. Yes, some of that is Geno's decision making, but also some of that could have been the play calling and the coordinator who got fired after 1 year and was not particularly well liked in Seattle. So Yeah, I'm sticking with this team's offensive upside. Even though I think, yes, New England's defense should be better, the schedule's easier. But yeah, if you gave me two options, Raiders 3-1 or Pats plus 150, I'm taking the autumn wind.
All right, I see that. Before we wrap up, I need you to sell me a little bit. You said a generational player in offense, and I was like, wait, Raiders? Who? I realize you must mean Brock Bowers here. I'm a little underwhelmed by, like, to me, he is a like receptions merchant. He is a dump offs merchant to me, and I'll admit I did not watch a lot of Raiders games closely down the stretch. They're popping up in red zone for me most of the time. Sell me a little bit on Brock Bowers as truly a generational prospect. That is who you meant there, yes?
Well, he broke the rookie receptions and receiving yards record for tight ends.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
That's
that
all I needed.
defines generational?
I think so. He was highly, huge pedigree going into college, produced at every step of the way in college, despite playing for like a defense first, run the ball control team. And then, 1,194 receiving yards as a rookie. The record was 86. He ended up with 112. So just like shatters the receptions record. Yeah, but that's inherently valuable for an offense. So I mean, sure, like he could take a step back, probably won't break the record again, but I think he could have another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I sort of process him as when we see, I'm still an NBA mind over here. We see like a rookie go to a bad team and just get a lot of shots up. I feel like Bowers got a lot of shots up, and that doesn't always necessarily translate to you being a star later on in a better team. But, when you're breaking records and you're getting 114 or whatever it was to 86 is not just a lot of shots up. Like, you are crushing the record. You're beating it by 30 catches at that point is not nothing. And volume is important in the NFL also. So I can buy that. All right. To wrap up, here is our shocking discoveries today. Chiefs playoffs, Bills playoffs, Ravens playoffs. We kept them all in. We kept the Chargers in. We knocked out the Steelers and the Broncos. We both agreed on all of those things. We brought the Bengals back in. We disagreed on the Texans. You kept the Texans in. I replaced them with the Jaguars. And then a little fun at the end. We needed one more playoff team each. Dabbundo brought the Raiders into the playoffs. I'm going to go with the Patriots as my last wildcard team. Dabbundo, I know you're at the Ringer. Where besides the Action app with all of your awesome picks across all the sports, where do we follow you?
Yeah, I'll be doing NFL stuff in the Ringer Gambling Show feed. Not sure when we're getting around to division by division previews or what that's going to look like just exactly yet, but I'll be doing NFL there. I'm also on the Ringer Soccer Show. You can find me on theringer.com, writing about various other sports. In the last 2 months, I've written about tennis, soccer, baseball, and the Papal Conclave. So I've really diversified my writing portfolio. Shout out to Pope Leo. But I think it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to do we're going to record the NFC episode soon after this. Definitely will be a lot more upheaval, a lot more difference making, and such has been the way of the NFL for the last, I would say, 10 years. But it was fun. I'm glad we had some disagreement. I'm glad we found something different. And I ended up saying that the AFC West was overrated and yet picked 3 of them to make the playoffs. Overrated is a relative term, of course.
Yeah, everything is relative. Yeah, be sure to listen to the NFC version. That should be up later this week. Keep your eyes on the Action Network podcast all summer. We will, of course, be ramping up more and more as we head toward the NFL season. Dabbundo, good to catch up with you again. We'll do NFC soon in a few minutes in real time here later this week for you listening. This has been the Action Network podcast. We'll talk to you soon.